Mechanical web shooters. Spider-Man's traditional web shooters are mechanical devices worn on the wrists that fire synthetic web fluid through a pressure-activated trigger. These shooters are not part of Peter Parker's powers. They are inventions he designs and builds himself, using a combination of mechanical engineering and advanced chemistry. This establishes that Spider-Man's web-slinging ability is rooted in intelligence and preparation, not mutation. The web fluid used in these shooters is a synthetic polymer designed to mimic spider silk. It is lightweight, extremely strong, adhesive on contact, and dissolves after a set period of time. The fluid is stored in pressurized cartridges housed inside the web shooter. When Peter activates the trigger, the shooter releases a controlled amount of webbing through a narrow nozzle, allowing precise control over distance, spread, and anchoring. This design creates natural limitations. The web shooters can run out of fluid, malfunction, or be damaged. Peter must monitor supply levels, replace cartridges, and repair the devices when they fail. These constraints are intentional. They reinforce Spider-Man's identity as a hero who relies on problem solving and resource management rather than unlimited power. Every later version of the web shooter either refines, removes, or radically alters this foundational concept. Modular web system. In Marvel's Spider-Man, developed by Insomniac Games, the web shooters represent a fully matured version of Peter Parker's original invention. By this point, Peter has been operating as Spider-Man for several years, and his web shooters reflect long-term refinement rather than improvisation. The devices are concealed within civilian wristbands, allowing Peter to move through public spaces without visibly carrying superhero technology. When suited up, the shooters integrate seamlessly with the costume, prioritizing speed, discretion, and reliability. Functionally, these web shooters operate as a modular system rather than a single-purpose launcher. Using the same core hardware, Peter can deploy multiple specialized web types, each engineered for a specific tactical role. These include impact webbing designed to pin enemies to solid surfaces, electric webs that conduct disabling shocks, web grenades that create area of effect traps, and trip mines that combine adhesive webbing with triggered explosives. Each variant alters how Spider-Man controls crowds, isolates threats, or manipulates the environment during combat. The system is tightly linked to Peter's scientific background and ongoing experimentation. The web shooters feature rapid reconfiguration, precision targeting, and diagnostic feedback that allows Peter to adjust performance in real time. Rather than replacing the classic concept, this version expands it, showing how the original mechanical web shooter can evolve into a customizable platform. It reinforces Spider-Man as an engineer who continuously improves his technology in response to stronger enemies and more complex situations. AI Web Arsenal. In the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Spider-Man's web shooters undergo a major transformation after Tony Stark becomes directly involved in Peter Parker's development. While Peter initially uses the homemade mechanical web shooters, Stark integrates those systems into a high-tech Spider-Man suit equipped with advanced computing and artificial intelligence. The web shooters remain mechanical and cartridge-based, but their operation is now assisted by onboard AI that manages targeting, timing, and deployment efficiency. These upgraded shooters are capable of executing hundreds of distinct web functions through programmable configurations. The system includes taser webs designed to deliver electrical shocks, web bombs that disperse adhesive material over a wide area, rapid-fire webbing for crowd control, and ricochet webs that allow Peter to incapacitate targets without direct line of sight. Each web type is selected digitally, reducing the need for manual adjustments and allowing Peter to react faster in high-pressure situations. With the introduction of the Iron Spider suit, the web shooter system becomes even more refined. The shooters are optimized for extreme environments, including space, and are fully integrated with the suit's mechanical limbs and sensory systems. Web deployment becomes faster, stronger, and more precise, transforming the web shooter from a personal invention into a large-scale combat support system. This version represents the peak of technological enhancement, where Spider-Man's web shooters function as part of a networked AI-controlled weapons platform rather than a standalone tool. Transformation Web Shooter. In the 1978 Japanese live-action Spider-Man series produced by Toei, the web shooter is reimagined as a multifunction transformation and command device rather than a dedicated web-slinging tool. Worn on the wrist as a bulky mechanical unit, the device appears as a cluster of rectangular components mounted on a bracelet. Unlike traditional web shooters, its primary role is not mobility or restraint, but identity, transformation, and system activation. This web shooter allows Takuya Yamashiro to store his Spider-Man suit and instantly transform when activated. The device functions as a centralized control system, linking the user to multiple technological capabilities. Web deployment exists, but it is secondary to the shooter's broader role as an interface between Spider-Man and advanced machinery. This reframes the concept of the web shooter as a multifunction control unit rather than a single-purpose invention. The most extreme function of this device is its ability to summon Leopardon, a massive combat mech used to fight giant enemies. Through the wrist-mounted unit, Spider-Man remotely activates and commands the robot, effectively turning the web shooter into a beacon for large-scale warfare. This interpretation abandons the traditional emphasis on agility and restraint, replacing it with transformation mechanics and heavy firepower. It represents one of the most radical departures from the classic web shooter concept, organic web shooters. In Sam Raimi's Spider-Man films, the web shooter is removed entirely and replaced with a biological mechanism. After being bitten by a genetically engineered spider, Peter Parker develops organic spinnerets embedded in his wrists. These spinnerets allow him to produce and eject webbing naturally, making web slinging an innate physical ability rather than a technological invention. The organic webbing is generated internally and expelled through openings in the skin, functioning in a manner similar to real spider silk production. The web strands possess high tensile strength, elasticity, and adhesive properties without requiring cartridges, pressure systems, or mechanical triggers. Because the webbing is biologically produced, Peter does not need to monitor supply levels or perform maintenance, removing many of the limitations associated with mechanical web shooters. This interpretation fundamentally changes what the web shooter represents. Instead of showcasing Peter Parker's intelligence and engineering skill, web slinging becomes a direct result of mutation. While this simplifies the mechanics of the ability, it removes a core aspect of Spider-Man's comic identity: his role as an inventor who builds his own tools. The organic web shooters therefore represent a shift away from technological ingenuity and toward physical transformation as the source of Spider-Man's capabilities. Enhanced web shooters. During the Superior Spider-Man storyline, Dr. Otto Octavius takes control of Peter Parker's body and inherits his web shooter technology. Upon examining the existing design, Otto identifies structural and functional limitations and immediately begins improving both the web fluid and the shooters themselves. His modifications are driven by efficiency, control, and data collection rather than mobility or improvisation. Otto reformulates the web fluid to dramatically increase its tensile strength and durability. The new compound is strong enough to withstand sustained gunfire, making it effectively bulletproof under most conditions. This alters the role of the webbing, from temporary restraint to reinforced containment, allowing Otto to immobilize threats with far greater permanence. The web shooters are calibrated to handle the increased viscosity and pressure required to deploy this stronger material. Beyond webbing strength, Otto integrates advanced sensor systems into the shooters. These include miniature cameras and sonar-based navigation tools that provide environmental awareness in low visibility conditions. The shooters also interface with autonomous spider bots that patrol the city and transmit surveillance data. This transforms the web shooters into part of a broader monitoring network, reflecting Otto's authoritarian approach to crime prevention and his belief that Spider-Man should operate through control and oversight rather than adaptability. Weaponized web shooters. On Earth 8351, introduced in the 1986 What If. Spider-Man's web shooters are fundamentally re-engineered into lethal weapons. In this reality, Peter Parker becomes a trained assassin after accidentally killing a close associate of Wolverine. This shift in role directly alters the purpose of his equipment, transforming the web shooter from a non-lethal restraint tool into a delivery system for deadly force. The wrist-mounted devices are modified to fire conventional bullets instead of synthetic webbing. This requires replacing the internal web fluid chambers with ammunition magazines, firing pins, and reinforced barrels capable of handling ballistic discharge. The trigger mechanism remains wrist activated, but the output is no longer adhesive or elastic. The web shooter becomes functionally equivalent to a concealed firearm built into Spider-Man's costume. This version represents a complete abandonment of Spider-Man's traditional philosophy. The web shooter no longer exists to immobilize, disarm, or escape. It exists to kill. By converting the device into a gun, this reality demonstrates how Spider-Man's technology reflects his moral framework. When the character's ethics collapse, the web shooter follows, becoming a symbol of how far removed this version is from the hero's usual restraint-based approach to crime fighting. Biological webbing. In the Marvel Zombies storyline, Spider-Man loses access to both mechanical web shooters and conventional organic web production. After becoming infected by the zombie virus, Peter Parker adapts by using his own veins and arteries as substitutes for webbing. Instead of firing synthetic or biologically produced silk, he physically extracts strands of his vascular system and uses them to swing, bind, and anchor himself to structures. These exposed veins function as improvised tensile lines, capable of supporting Spider-Man's weight and allowing limited traversal. Unlike engineered webbing, they do not regenerate instantly and lack controlled deployment mechanisms. Each use causes severe physical damage and pain, even in Peter's undead state. There is no trigger system, no precision nozzle, and no cartridge management. Web slinging becomes a manual destructive act rather than a controlled technological process. This interpretation represents the complete collapse of the web shooter concept. Technology, invention, and even mutation are stripped away, leaving only biological desperation. The method is unreliable, damaging, and unsustainable, yet it allows Spider-Man to continue operating despite total systemic failure. In this universe, web slinging is no longer a symbol of intelligence or power, but of survival under irreversible decay. And just like that, Spider-Man's web shooters go from clever homemade chemistry to AI-controlled arsenals, biological mutations, military hardware, and in one universe, his own veins. Same hero, same wrists, wildly different definitions of what web slinging even means. If you enjoy deep dives like this, hit subscribe for more Marvel breakdowns and let me know in the comments which web shooter you think went too far, or which one you'd actually want to use.